Bleep, 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 bleep. The bait of the day. A Heddon Lucky 13. This is a forgotten lure. And we're going to take a walk down the path with this thing. Learn a little bit more about it. Are you ready to run and gun? It's time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Todd here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101, where I try to make fishing simple for everybody. I hope I can get my old school 10-gallon hat in the picture. Man, the Lucky 13 and the Baby 13. But there's something about the original 13 that, man, it's a great topwater bait. And you almost can't work it wrong. But there's one trick to it I bet a lot of people don't know. As far as on a retrieval. This thing here, if you slow crank it, you find the speed that you need to do it, this bait will go like this in the water. It will actually swim underwater with its tail just breaking the surface. It'll swim just like that. It's a slow swim. It's not like a crankbait. It's a slow swim. But if you're popping this thing and you can't get nothing to work on it, or you got bass missing it, or they're rolling up on it, sometimes it's because they don't want to break the surface. The same thing with a buzzbait. You could be cranking a buzzbait, they'll nip at it, but you switch to a spinnerbait and burn that sucker just under the surface where the blade almost just wakes the surface of that thing. All of a sudden you catch one. They don't want to break the surface. So a lot of times if I'm fishing baits like this, especially Lucky 13, because this is a double whammy right here. If you're fishing this on top and they're bowling it and missing it, start pulling it. Pulling it, pause it, let it come back up. Pull it, pause it, let it come back up. A lot of times I've caught bass doing that. If I see I'll start pulling it and they'll hit it. What kind of knot? Well, for something like this, I like a loop knot. I want this bait loose. Now, if I'm going to be constantly popping it, and whatever, I might tie a Palomar. Just tie directly to the bait. Throw it like you would a popper. Because you can take that knot and slot it in different areas and get different sounds out of this bait if that's what you want to use it for. Okay? If not, if that's not working, you can go to a loop knot. So I would not suggest a split ring or a snap on this bait because you might do one or the other. So I would definitely suggest just leaving that line tied just like it is. Because you can manipulate it with different knots. The other modification I do to this bait, as you can see, the hooks lay flat. Because what I do is I take and add a split ring right back here on this back side of these old hangers. So I still use the hangers. I don't throw them away. And on a bait like this, I use a standard size treble hook. These just happen to be owner STs. And the reason is they can't touch each other. I use about a number 3 split ring. All 3 of them. Number 3 split ring. And these, the front, these 2 right here sometimes get hung up. I tell you what, that's not the ones that get hung up. Usually these are the ones that get hung up. But because I went to a standard hook, they're doing just fine. Topwater baits, I would never use a short shank hook, ever. The reason is, you're not getting a lot of bite. And if you go to an oversized hook, you kill the action of the bait. People don't understand that. As a bait designer and builder, you learn this stuff. And, so when I'm modifying baits, especially production baits, you have to take this stuff into consideration. This came with long shank 4/0 hooks, the old Eagle Claw saltwater type hooks, and they still come with that today. But because there's no split ring, you lean forward and the hooks lock, so they can't go forward. That to me is a crowbar. Bass use that, and the bait will pop right out. Same thing with Zara spooks. They'll pop right out. Any kind of a bait that's got these kind of hook hangers and don't have a split ring on them is a crowbar waiting to happen. Next thing you know, right in the side of your face, or shoots over your head, or you just lose the fish, period. So I don't use a long shank hook like I do with, say, Zara spooks and things like that. This type bait uses a standard owner ST because the hook shank is just right. The actual length of the hook is just right. And it works all the way around. These are size 4s. And they just stick you looking at them. Look at that. Ow. They'll stick you looking at them. So the thing to remember about topwater, guys, is your bite ratio. Okay? Your bite ratio. What hangs under the water? So that's something you have to keep in mind. People don't take that into consideration. And they really need to. If you've never thought of it, if you're throwing factory hooks on a topwater, especially Heddons or Rebels or Cordells or things like that, look into changing them. In all seriousness, look into changing them. As far as like the boy howdies, the prop bait, Cordell boy howdies, a standard size number 6. Not a long shank like an Eagle Claw, but a standard owner ST number 6. I like the owner STs because if a bass is just taking a pass at it, you got a better chance of hooking that fish. Unless you're the kind of person who likes to sit around and file all your hooks and make sure they're all needle sharp, even if they're a factory bronze hook or whatever, that's fine. That'll still hook the fish. Fish don't read magazines. They can't look up at a topwater and go, well, that's a standard bronze mustad. I ain't hitting that. Dude, trust me, bass don't do that. I'm sure some pros will tell you different. Because they got something to sell you. But that's just a simple setup. And when I'm fishing the Lucky 13, that's what I use. And like I said, guys, this is a great topwater bait. Does it work in open water? Yeah, it can work in open water, but you better keep it moving. The reason is because there's not a lot of cover. So you have to keep... Ow, daggone. I'm just a clumsy dude. But you have to keep this thing moving. Now, if you're around cover, then you can slow it down and work this bait. But I tell you what, a lot of times, especially if there's some little bit of wind, I'll take this thing and throw it way, way out there. Because it weighs about 5/8 of an ounce. Take this thing and throw it way, way out there. And just start cranking it back. Maybe pause it once in a while, let it come back to the surface. And then start cranking it again. That to me is better 10 foot or less. I say by 10 foot or less would be that kind of presentation. This is not something like a pop-R. Pop-R, man, you can throw that in open water 50 foot deep, call bass up or whatever. This is not really one of those baits. This is a chugger, not a popper. All right, so there's a difference. Chugger has a smaller winder than a popper does. A popper can splash and spit and all kinds of stuff and bloop and everything else. Bloop, bloop, bloop. This does not do a bloop. This does a chug. So that's why they call them chuggers. And plus with that lip. And you think that lip's not much? Crank that thing in and watch what it does. And yes, people, these are still available. Heddon still makes these. Unfortunately, not that color, which is probably my favorite color Heddon has ever come out with, just a river perch. Especially transparent ones. Man, this is definitely a pattern that we're not going to start building my baits again, especially the crankbait I'm designing right now. That's definitely one of the patterns I'm doing it in. And I'll do a video on that down the road too. But yeah, there you go, man. Lucky 13, can't beat it. It's a great lure, and it's this one is like early 1970s, but still, I use it. It's got the hooks on it. It's not like it's a collector's item or anything. Not to me. Either fish it, keep it, or use it and catch them. I'd rather use them and catch them. So there you go. Lucky 13. It might be old. It might be crusty. Like the poop in your underwear. It might be a little crusty. But it still catches fish. And catches them as good as anything else that's out there today. Thanks for tuning in, fellas. Tight lines to you. As always, may the Father bless you and keep you in Yeshua's name. And as always, slow movement here. Fish on.